Okay, in this video, or series of videos, I want to show you how to use GitHub Desktop and GitHub to help synchronize our work, our projects on our school computer and a home computer. Okay, so we're going to work on our first video here. We're just going to set up GitHub and start a new project. So we start off by creating a GitHub account and making sure you're logged in. So go to github.com, sign up, create an account, and make sure you are logged in. Step one. Okay, step two, download and install GitHub Desktop. Okay, so go to desktop.github.com, download, make sure you install it and go through the install process. Once it's installed, it can probably prompt you to open it, but you should be able to also just go to the start menu and type GitHub and launch GitHub Desktop. Ta-da! Okay. Check your GitHub Desktop settings. I like to do this especially since I have multiple GitHub accounts. But I'll go File, Options. You want to make sure you're signed in with your account. There's this integrations. You can choose your favorite editor. If you've got Visual Studio Code on your machine, it should recognize Visual Studio Code, which is kind of handy. Gives you an option to launch VS Code right from GitHub Desktop. That's kind of cool. And then there's other settings here. You can go light and dark theme, whatever you want. Okay, so just make sure you're logged in. That's the most important thing. That's in the right account. Okay, once we've got that set up, we're going to create a new project on our local computer. So I'm going to go to my F drive, my CS10 Velcam folder, and I'm going to use my template to create a new project. I'm just going to rename it to GitHub Desktop Test, something like that. Okay, and then I'll open this with code and just do some minor changes here. Change the title, GitHub Desktop Test, and we'll just copy and paste that and put it in here. And we'll just say, oh, I lost it. There we go. Testing GitHub Desktop, period. Okay, save that. Great. So now I'm going to go back to, let's go back to my document here. So we created a new project on our local computer. It is now right here, right? GitHub Desktop Test. All right, the next step is convert that new project to a GitHub repository using GitHub Desktop File New Repository. Okay, so the idea here is that this is just a regular folder with files in it. We want to turn it into something called a repository, which is the language that GitHub uses, right? Each project should have its own repository. So if I go to GitHub Desktop, I'm going to go File, New Repository, and I want to give the repository name the exact same name as the project I just created. So I'm actually going to go back here. Just you want to do a slow click on it, and then you should be able to Control C to copy it, and Control V to paste it in here. And then my local path is in the right spot right now, F drive CS10. But if it's not, make sure you go this PC, F drive, CS10 Velcam. You want to choose the folder where your project is in. So we choose the parent folder. And what this is saying, we're telling GitHub Desktop, please create a repository with this name inside of this folder. Because there's already a folder in this folder here, the CS10 Velcam folder, because there's already a folder with this name in it, it'll convert the folder that exists into a repository. All right, so you'll see create repository. Right, it didn't create anything new. If we had a different name, it would have created a brand new repository, a brand new folder. But if I go back here now, you can see it added this .git and .git attributes. These are used to keep track of all of the changes to my file. Right, my GitHub Desktop tracks all the changes. If you don't see that, if you go to View, you can see hidden items. Right, then the .git should show up. It's kind of a hidden file. You don't want to delete this. This keeps track of all your changes. All right. So now that it's officially a repository, we can hit this big blue button because GitHub Desktop, we installed it on our local computer. We actually want to take this repository, GitHub Desktop Test. If I go to the history, it shows I did an initial commit with all these files in it, right? And I want to publish this repository to GitHub, right? Publish it to GitHub. So I just hit Publish Repository. We can give it a name. You can describe it. Testing GitHub Desktop keep it private or public. Organizations, I'm not going to get into organizations now, but whatever you want. You can make it public if you want to share it with me, or you want to publish it as a public web page. I'm just going to keep it private for now. I'm going to hit Publish Repository. And it's doing its thing, and it's uploading all those files up to GitHub. How do I test that? Well, you know what? I could go here and hit refresh, but you can also go straight from GitHub Desktop and say View on GitHub. Right? I'm going to view this repository on GitHub. And it'll open up a new tab, and it'll show me, hey, fake student, here's your GitHub Desktop test repository. Here's all the files in it. Yay! And let's just open this up just to see. Yep, that's the files that I wanted. Okay, you can always go back to here to click on, go back to the root folder to see all this stuff in here. All right, so now these files are on my GitHub account, and I can access them from my home computer. I'll make a video a little later on how to do that. I'm going to actually drive home, and I'll show you a video at home, what I would do to now get these files at my home computer. Before that, though, just a quick way to show you how GitHub Desktop helps me. Let's actually start and say, you know what, I'm going to close this project. I'm going to close GitHub Desktop, and I'm just going to show you how on my local computer how this would be so easy. Let's say I wanted to start working on this project now. I'm actually not going to open with code from here. What I like to do now is I'm actually going to go to GitHub Desktop. I'm going to make sure that I select the current repository. So as you build more repositories, you'll be able to select from them. I have a bunch of different repositories and different accounts. But anyway, you just select the current repository, and you can actually right from here say, open this repository in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I've got my GitHub Desktop open, and I launched VS Code from there with this repository. Testing GitHub Desktop, I'm going to say I'm adding some stuff. I'm going to go to my CSS here, and I'm going to say, you know what, I want to add my H1, I want to make navy. Save. Okay, so imagine I do a bunch of work. Maybe I add an exclamation mark here. We're doing a bunch of work. We save our changes. Now this is the awesome part. I now go back to GitHub Desktop, and GitHub Desktop says, hey, look, you changed 2 files. Right? It's tracking the changes. I give it a little summary saying, you know, added some stuff, and I say commit to main. And it now keeps track of those changes. And if I go to my history, you can actually see, hey, my initial commit was the initial files. Now I added some stuff, and it shows you what changed. Okay, so that's pretty cool. You can see a history. And now that I've made a commit, that's what it means when you use commit your changes, I can now push origin. Right? There's a local commit waiting to be pushed. I made some changes on my local machine. By hitting push origin, it's going to show those changes on my GitHub account. So right now, if I go to GitHub, and I should go right here, right? If I hit refresh, you'll see 4 minutes ago was my initial commit. Now I'm going to push origin, and it's doing its thing. If I go back here and hit refresh, you'll see that just now it updated these 2 files. Right? I added some stuff to them. Okay, and if you peek inside of here, you should be able to see, yeah, the exclamation mark. I'm adding some stuff. Okay, so that's your workflow. Open up GitHub Desktop, open in VS Code, do stuff, add a bunch of exclamation marks, save it, do whatever else you want, come back here and say, oh, I made some changes. Added exclamation marks. You say commit to main, push origin. So you save the changes on your local computer, the push origin saves them on here. I go back to here, and it says right now I added exclamation marks. Okay, so once it's set up, really easy, right? Make your changes, commit, push. Okay. Yeah, so we converted it to a new repository, we published the repository, and now we work on the project and we easily synchronize by doing that commit, push origin. Alright, that's it for this video. That shows you how to set up a new project, make it a repository. When I get home, I'll make another video on how to synchronize it at home. Okay, hope that made sense. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.